Hi, everybody. This is S.J. Thomason, Christian-apologist.com. And I think it's a little bit crazy of a time right now. We're at the end of August and we're facing a lot of continued challenges from the COVID. We're facing continued challenges from people who are against wearing masks. We also have, of course, the Black Lives Matter movement that's been quite active over the past couple of months, especially since what happened, unfortunately, to George Floyd up in Minnesota. So yesterday or a couple days ago, we saw a complete riot going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's amazing how people can arm up so quickly and mobilize. And of course, that speaks to the underlying current of Black Lives Matter. If you go to the blacklivesmatter.org website and you want to learn more about whether or not this particular group has been formalized, you're going to find out that they refer to themselves as comrades. Now, where do we hear the term comrade? Well, we've heard it, of course, under Karl Marx. And who is Karl Marx? Well, Karl Marx was a person who was sort of a mooch, and he was living in the 1800s, and he penned the Communist Manifesto, essentially, and he decided that it's the greedy people are at air for pretty much every fault in society. And he put on a facade of trying to appeal to the poor, but rather what he did was really expose his hatred for the wealthy. And so that was Karl Marx's major bottom line. And so what we're seeing today is we're seeing a resurgence in a really awful trend. Now, as if it's not enough that 120 million people perished in the last century due to Karl Marx's ideas under the USSR, Stalin, and under Cambodia with Pol Pot, and of course under Mao Zedong in China. So we saw 120 million people perish in the last century thanks to a version of Marxism. Now, what is Marxism? How does that play out? And what's the relationship with socialism and communism? Well, let's put it this way. Every country has a degree of socialism. Okay, in the United States, we're a mix of capitalism and socialism. Same thing with Europe. However, the mix is a little bit balanced in the United States, more towards a free market and less towards socialism. The socialist servers are basically government provided services like police, like the firefighters, like teachers. And in other societies, we see a balance of additional balance towards socialism. For example, in some of the European countries where they have universal health care, the health care is taken care of by the government. So it's centrally taken care of. Now, in the United States, I would love to have universal health care. However, it would be extremely expensive, and there is a fear that it might reduce some of the desire to innovate. If the government has taken over, what is the desire to keep innovating and coming out with expensive research and development? That is the big fear. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people from these other cultures where they have universal health care, such as in Canada and the United Kingdom, that happens to be one of the reasons why many of them come here when they need special services for medical reasons. Okay. And so the United States has a very innovative system, very expensive, way too expensive. And I'll be with you on board on that for sure. However, we've got to figure out what to do about that. But getting back to what I initially was discussing, the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, I know as I say this, a lot of people might say, well, of course I'm for Black lives. Well, we all are for Black lives, at least most sane people. In the United States, we love to see equality of opportunity for everyone. No one wants to see people mistreated. Absolutely what happened to George Floyd was downright egregious. We don't want police brutality. We can all agree with that. However, we don't also want to be guided by a socialistic type of government. Now, what form am I talking about? Well, let's consider what's going on in Venezuela. When I went to Venezuela in the 1990s, it was prior to Hugo Chavez's coming into office, and it was a dangerous place. I went there on a cruise ship, and we got off at La Guaira, and we went on to the Milano glass factory, where we were able to watch people blow glass and get some really cool little figurines. It was a really great place. Venezuela's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it was very capitalistic then. People were making money. Venezuela happens to have a very good, at the time, I should say, it had a very good, relatively capitalist society where people were doing well and the oil industry was thriving. Venezuela has oodles of oil. So what happened? Well, Hugo Chavez came into office and he decided to nationalize a lot of the assets of the country, which basically is another way for saying that the government would take over. And the government did take over. And what he declared was they were going to have very low, this is one example, electricity costs. And to subsidize that, they took money essentially, it's like a Robin Hood. They took from the rich and gave to the poor. Well, a lot of people fled, including one of my son's friends' families. They fled from Venezuela. They were a well-to-do family in Venezuela. Many of the people who were the entrepreneurs and the capitalists in Venezuela fled, leaving Venezuela in sort of a lurch. So what happened? Well, if you have 2 and 3 cents gasoline and very inexpensive electricity, you're, of course, going to have some people gaming the system. So what happened? People across the borders from other countries would come into Venezuela, buy their gas, and go back to their own countries. So they were taking the advantage of the low price gas and the low electricity and really sucking out of Venezuela. And so what we see today is a lot of people are starving in Venezuela. In fact, from what I've heard, doctors are unable to report the cause of death is starvation in many hospitals because there is so high of a level of starvation, unfortunately, in Venezuela. This is the problem of a socialist society that has a very big proportion of socialism relative to its proportion of a free market. Now, in the United States, we have a very big proportion of a free market society relative to our socialist society. One of the reasons why I've been talking a lot about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's New Green Plan, New Green Deal, is because her deal would cost us $93 trillion over 10 years. Now, if we were to implement such a plan, which has some very interesting ideas, such as making sure that people don't fly on planes anymore because she thinks the fumes coming from the warming. However, this particular plan of hers being so expensive and requiring the government takeover of a number of different areas of our lives here in the United States would actually give us a higher percentage of socialism, essentially government-owned production, than what we have today, higher than Venezuela. Now, that's a problem. That's a problem because we saw what happened in Venezuela. We don't want to see that. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people now are campaigning against socialism. Those people who have been voting in the Democratic platform had been hoping for a moderate sort of a candidate. Now, Joe Biden, probably out of the group, is the most moderate candidate. However, Joe Biden has been pandering towards the far left in his group, led by people, again, like Bernie Sanders and his acolytes like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so we have a lot of difficult things going on there. Now, I want to say hi as I'm looking over here. I see SD4, Utopia Buster, Michael, the Canadian Atheist. Hi, everybody. Great to see you all. And so it sounds like Michael might be on the socialist bandwagon. I am not against socialism to the extent that we can have some good services provided to us. I'm not against the idea of having the government step in certain areas. Okay, I would love to have universal health care. However, I am against taking away our options for private insurance. I could go down this a little bit deeper, but I don't want to so much, because what I want to do today is I also want to show you my thoughts on a few comments from 4 different atheist Christian debates. And I was going to play a couple of minutes, not just a couple minutes from each debate, that I thought highlighted some key points from those debates. And so that's among my plans for today. My other plan for today is to talk a little bit about this face mask idea. Now, as I say this kind of stuff, I realize it's controversial. Naturally, YouTube basically has been demonetizing every single one of my videos of late. They decided that I say controversial things. I had no idea. There's a few words that I might say, like Black Lives Matter, that would get me demonetized. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm not even here for the monetization for the 2 cents I might make per video anyway. It really doesn't matter. So I figure I'm going to talk about whatever I want to today without worrying that YouTube is going to demonetize, because I expect they will. They've been doing that for every single video that I've come out with. And that's absolutely fine. So going back to this idea of face masks. Now, I wasn't talking about face masks before, but I'm going to talk about it right now. This past weekend, I taught an executive MBA class, and it was the first day of the cohort, a brand new cohort of executive MBAs. Now, these are the creme de la creme of our students at the University of Tampa. They're very much valued. We love executive MBA students. And we had 12 of them in this cohort. And one of the first things I asked them, I said, well, tell me about why you chose my university. And they got up there and they said the reason we chose it, and this is just about every single person, I don't recall anyone saying this was not the case, said that they chose the university because we were going to deliver face-to-face. And they love that. They don't want to get their lessons online. They love the high-touch approach that our private, rather small university provides. We have about 10,000 students in our university. And our whole what we would call competitive advantage is focusing on small classroom sizes and high interactions between the faculty and the students. We get to know them. We get to know their names. I know every single student's name in that 12-person cohort that I just taught. And so it was really great because I felt very happy about that. And so after a full weekend of all of us wearing masks, all the students wearing masks in the classroom, I was wearing a mask the whole time. I came to realize it's hard to speak through a mask. I really had to project my voice even more. I don't need a speaker in my classes because I tend to be very loud anyway, but I projected it even higher because I realized I had a mask on, which challenged me a little bit, but you know what? It's worth it. Okay, it's worth it. There are a lot of people on Twitter that I've been encountering, nice people, really good people, a lot of Christians who feel like either one, it's the mark of the beast, or two, they don't think there's any evidence that masks are helpful. And one person told me masks trap in the bad fumes coming out of your mouth and make you sick. Well, I don't know. I certainly didn't have any evidence of that as I was delivering those classes. It seemed perfectly fine to wear a mask. And I'm actually excited to be able to go back and see my students face to face and get in there in the classroom and do fun exercises. And so all I'm saying right now, my bottom line is, please wear the mask. If you're going to protect somebody like my parents, you're going to protect other college faculty or your teachers or the person at the gas station who happens to be a little bit older, or you'll protect somebody else just by wearing that mask and sneezing into the mask rather than just blurting out a sneeze or coughing on people, well, then do it. There's no reason not to do it. There's a better chance of protecting people. Now, I've been able to come into contact with numerous people over the past few months since March. And I've gone into lots of stores. I've gone to gas stations. I've gone out to eat once. I've done a number of different things and I still don't have COVID. And why don't I have COVID? Because I wore the mask and I clean my hands. Okay. I wash my hands after all of these interactions. But anyway, all right. So now we're talking a little bit about some other interesting topics. So I'm going to show you a quick clip. I've got 4 different really exciting clips. I'm going to go to the first one. I'm going to share my screen. Let me just see if we can get this up. Now let's see. Oh, how do I do this? Okay. So I want to come back, see if I can share the screen. Let's see how this works. Friendly heads up. Chrome has a bug. Well, we'll see if this works. Okay, application. I don't know. This is the first time I've tried to share my screen. I don't know if this is going to work. Oh, his Christian belief rational. Here we go. I think that's the first one I was going to go to. Okay, yes. David Smalley versus Dr. Randall Rouser. That's the first one we're going to take a look at here. Okay, I trust you can see this. Actually, I got to make sure that you can hear it, though. I'm not sure if StreamYard has that thing where you can hear it. So let me double check the volume. Let me just double check where the volume setting would be just to be sure. Because I know when I do this through Zoom, what I tend to see is with Zoom is that the volume doesn't go on. So I'm testing this all out and I don't see any place that would tell me that the volume is not going to be on. So I'm going to have to watch the crowd here. I'm going to do a quick test, see if you guys can hear this, and I'm going to come right back. And if you can't hear it, let me know. Okay, so I trust you have my screen sharing this. I hope you can hear it. So here you go. So this is Dr. Randall Rouser. He is discussing whether or not Christian belief is rational against David Smalley. Now, I've been on David Smalley's channel twice. He's been on my channel. Randall Rouser has been on my channel. And the bottom line on this particular debate is a really interesting thing. David Smalley said he's met lots of rational Christians. However, he feels that Christianity itself is an irrational belief. So 3 or 4 billion people who believe in Christianity, he feels that those beliefs are irrational. And what he does is he strawmans Christianity to talk a lot about the Jesus rising from the dead, floating up into the heavens, into the clouds. He says no one has ever come back to life. Hence, Christianity must be irrational. Now, of course, we have numerous reasons to believe Christianity is rational. And what Randall Rouser said that was a really good comment here is he said, your level of plausibility, your plausibility meter does not equate to our rationality meter. So just because David finds Christianity to be implausible does not mean that to the everyday average Christian that it is also irrational, because the Christian does not find the belief to be implausible. Now, if the Christian did find the belief to be implausible and he still worshiped Christianity, well, then, of course, the belief would be irrational. So I'm going to test this. I'm going to come right back to you guys just to make sure you hear it. Okay, so let me just play a little bit here. Okay, so he's giving a quick response. Could you hear that? So I'm going to come back. I'm just double checking before I do this. We need to set up our chat. Yeah, I do. Michael, we can chat pretty soon. I just want to find out if you guys heard that, because if you didn't, I'm going to do a different approach. I'm just going to show you the debates and offer my opinions rather than try to do the sound, because I'm not sure if the sound is working here. So let me just check that out. No, the sound is not working. Okay. So I will not be able to show you that. That's okay. That's okay. Can't hear. Okay. All right, good. So I know you can't hear, and I'm not sure how to fix that right now with this particular approach. So I'm going to go and stop sharing my screen. I'm going to come back. I am going to show you a couple of screens. So anyway, I'm going to give you my opinions on these debates. That's what I'm going to do, because I watched 4 different debates in the past week or so, and I have some opinions. So this particular debate, as I mentioned before, the big question is the plausibility of a belief equivalent to whether or not the belief is rational? That was the big question in the Smalley-Randall Rouser debate. And no, the plausibility does not equate to whether or not something's rational. Just because David Smalley did not think Christianity is plausible does not mean that a Christian who thinks it's plausible also thinks it's rational. Okay, so that does not mean that you can say it's irrational if someone else considers it plausible. And it's not just somebody else. It's not just some guy in the woods who's trying to make a living off of eating bark and doing things like that. We're talking about 4 billion people in the world who think Christianity is rational. And so let me stop sharing that one. I'm going to go to another one. Just going to show you my opinions on a few of these things. Okay, share screen. Let's see, application. Oh, nope, that doesn't work. Chrome tab. Okay, now we're going to go to Smokey versus Maddox, and I'm going to give you my opinions on this one. Now, this particular debate, coming back over here, this particular debate was a 4-pack. It was actually Smokey and Maddox versus negation of P and what's the other guy's name? Let me just double check here. Negation of P and Matthew. Okay, so Maddox, Smokey, Ned, and Matthew. Those are the 4 people who were involved in this particular debate. So just to get you what happened in this debate, here's the question. They wanted to know about Christian versus secular ethics. Now, Christian ethics is steeped in the idea that Christianity is the source. There's a source of our ethical moral code. There's a moral lawgiver, and that's God. He holds us accountable. The interesting thing about the secular system is they try to piggyback off Christian morals, but then they like to claim that there's no source of accountability. It's kind of a really interesting thing. And so what happens here is negation of P spend a long time talking about if we can agree on these values. He said, if we can agree on these values or these goals, then society will be well functioning. Well, of course, that is just him saying, if we can agree. Now, did the Nazis agree that all life is valuable? No, because and was there any, if under that particular system, is there any way you can hold them accountable? No, of course not. So that's the issue. Now, where are secular ethics codified? I don't know. I mean, actually, if we look at the American Atheist website, let's take a look at that and just see if secular ethics are codified, because I think they might be there. The reason I'm saying that is because I saw a study of people who talked about 7 major world religions, atheism, the United Nations, and they realized that we all seek a source of meaning. We all endorse the golden rule or some form of it. We all believe in this idea of benevolence, which is caring for the in-group. And we all believe in the idea of universalism, which is caring for the out-group. So I suspect it's from that particular group. So I'm gonna head on over here as you guys are over here and take a look at American Atheists About Us website. And let's just find out what they think. All right, so I'm going to get that. I'm going to share the screen with you just for fun so we can get to that. There's the About Us. Great. What is atheism? Our vision. Oh, this is going to be fun. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is wonderful. Wait till you guys see this. This is going to be great. Okay, let me stop that. Put this on. You're going to like this, little crew. All right, sharing the screen. Here we go, American Atheist. So what is atheism? So hopefully you can see this. So atheism is not affirmative belief. Now here's what they do. This is a little trick that atheists play. In the old days, for centuries, all the way up until the 70s, till Antony Flew came out and said that atheism is a lack of belief in gods, all the time prior to that, atheism was the positive assertion that there are no gods, okay? But they deny that here. The American atheists say atheism is not an affirmative belief that there is no God, nor does it answer any other question about what a person believes. It's just a rejection of the assertion that there are gods. It is too often defined incorrectly as a belief system. To be clear, atheism is not a disbelief in gods or a denial of gods. It is a lack of belief. Now, let's think about that. Why would they do that? Well, of course, this to them shifts the burden of proof into the Christian's lap, meaning that if they say that they do not have a belief, it's just a disbelief, then according to them, the person who makes the positive assertion that there is a God is the one who has the proof, the burden of proof. And so that is a tactic that the atheists use. Okay, so let's take a look at more about them and let's see if we can find a little bit. Oh, it's not a belief system, nor is it a religion. Now, here's what's really interesting about that. American atheist, of course, is located in the United States. And in the United States, in the workplace, atheists are protected against discrimination based on race, religion, color, national origin, or gender. Now, atheism in that legal context is protected. People who are atheists are protected as a function of their religion, or how the way the government labels it is really their source of their major guiding principles in their lives. So atheism, according to the government, is leading to the guiding principles in the atheist life. And so they don't like being labeled as a religion, but the government has taken it upon themselves to do that. Now, I don't think the atheists would go against the government for doing that, mainly because, here's why, mainly because, ooh, this is going to be a good one. The government wouldn't do that because they want to be protected, of course, in the workplace. They'd be crazy if they didn't. Okay, so now it says here, recent survey from University of Kentucky psychologists Will Gervais and Maxine Nagel found that as many as 26% of Americans may be atheists. That's interesting. Now, the Pew Research has indicated 3.1% of Americans have called themselves atheists. There's a larger portion of people who call themselves agnostic. And of course, there is another portion of people who refer to themselves as nuns. My parents would fall into the latter category. They call themselves a nun. It doesn't mean that they have no belief. It means they don't go to church, essentially. They don't believe in they don't believe in an organized religion. And there's probably a kind of a large group of people like that. Unfortunately, I wish my parents weren't like that, but that's okay. This Will Gervais has come out with a lot of studies. Actually, if you guys are interested in Will Gervais's stuff, he did this study where he found that atheists thought that atheists would be the ones who were acting the least appropriately in a society. And they had cited some pretty bad examples of some of this inappropriate behavior, which I won't note here because if I want to get my video banned, I would do that. So you guys can look that up yourselves. So let's see if we can find about, let's look at their vision. Let's see what their vision is. American atheists envision a world in which public policy is made using the best evidence we have rather than religious dogma. They always call us dogmatic. However, let's see what we have here. I'm trying to see if there's any sort of a system. Okay, so far I'm not seeing anything. It's a mental attitude, supremacy of reason. Now, what's really interesting, this is good. Materialism declares that the cosmos is devoid of immanent conscious purpose. That is, that it is governed by its own inherent, immutable, and impersonal laws. There's no supernatural interference in human life, that humankind, finding the resources within themselves, can and must create their own destiny. Now, as John Lennox has pointed out, he's pointed out the fact that a lot of times atheists like to try to test things. They want to retest things. However, as he's pointed out, you can't do that historically. You can't go back and revisit when a lot of events occurred in history. We simply can't do that. That's the nature of history. But what he did talk about is we can use an abductive approach, meaning that if we're provided a number of different facts in history, we use what we call the best explanation for those facts. And so the best explanation for the evidence surrounding Jesus' resurrection is that he resurrected from the dead. Now, I'm not finding the belief systems of the atheists here. So I'm just I don't know if you can see me perusing through their stuff, but I don't see information about their belief system besides their vision. Of course, you can donate to them. Let's see what their donation page looks like. Wow, so they were able to help stop 73 of 83 Christian nationalist bills. Woohoo! All right, so let's go back to StreamYard. Okay, so thank you so much. Okay, now what I want to talk about is another issue that's going on today with respect to anxiety. So I want to talk about a post that I just put up on my Christian Apologist website. I have a website called christian-apologist.com. And one of the reasons why I want to share this is because of something I discovered not too long ago, and it has to do with anxiety. Did you know that 18% of people in the United States are receiving medical care for being highly anxious? Okay, anxiety is a personality trait. It's they call it neuroticism. It's related to worrying and those sorts of things. I'm not able to see the other comments here. Why? Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about what I learned. So I'm going to read to you something here. When I was in my 20s many years ago, I came across a person I'll call Jimmy, who had a 9-to-5 type of job. Jimmy told me once that when he got home from work, he had so much energy balled up inside of him that he had to either hit the gym or hit the bar for a bunch of beers. Both would help to diffuse his energy. After reflecting on what he called energy, I realized he may have been dealing with anxiety. His anxiety over his job stresses, coworkers, bills, and more may have led to his need to quell his energy by switching his focus to another activity, like working out or drinking. Obviously, exercise is healthy for releasing one's energy, while drinking is not. We all deal with anxieties to an extent, and the coping mechanisms we use can be life-altering. At the heart of bad habits or addictions is often anxiety, whether at the surface level in one's daily interactions and stresses, or at the existential level when we ponder our purpose and meaning. Why are we here? Is there more to life than this? These are big questions, and atheism doesn't provide the answers to these. Anxiety is defined in the Google Dictionary as a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illnesses in the U.S., which impact 18.1% of the population, or 40 million adults annually. These disorders result from a variety of factors, such as one's personality, brain chemistry, life events, and genetic dispositions. So since 2002, just to let you know, I've worked as a university educator in 2 colleges of business in the United States. I've taught a variety of courses at the undergraduate and graduate levels, including human resource management, leadership, corporate social responsibility, interpersonal skills, and business communication. I just taught that over the weekend to EMBA students. Now, what is EMBA? Those are the executive MBA students who take their classes on Saturday. They tend to be more seasoned than traditional MBA students. A lot of times they've been out in the workplace for over a decade at least. The average age is usually about 40 years old. So I taught those students. They're pretty amazing. I've also taught cross-cultural relations, international business, and management essentials. So I would group these all under the title of human capital leadership. Since 2016, I've been the director of a coaching program in my university's Center for Leadership, where we pair MBA students with professional coaches and trained community leaders. So based on these experiences, I've been privy to the academic and extracurricular experiences of numerous students from varying walks of life who faced highs and lows. So which ones of these are most likely to survive? Well, a lot of times the resilient ones. They don't ball up the challenges that they have as inner anxieties. Some see that people do that. Some don't even realize they have. A lot of times you might be anxious. You get home, there's something in the back of your mind from work that just is bothering you, but you can't quite pinpoint it. Some people turn to a glass of wine, some turn to exercise, some turn to drugs, pot, all sorts of things. And sometimes these things are self-destructive. So I've learned that the people who can overcome this sort of stuff tend to be purpose-driven, thankful, and serene. They have high integrity and they like to serve others. Many are servant leaders in our communities. They often overcome great challenges, and that's only made them stronger. Now, I learned from one of my students, one of her approaches, and I realized that my students are huge advocates of what they call meditation. Meditation you can find on different apps right now. There are a lot of different apps on meditating, like the Calm app, and they're quite popular. And a lot of times it's just about just taking a moment when you get home from work, taking a deep breath, taking time to yourself, and praying. Praying is very helpful. That's one of the things that those people do. They walk in the way of the greatest leader to ever walk the earth, Jesus Christ. He guides their days and directs their paths. Becoming a Christian necessitates learning more about Jesus in a deep, complex, highly educational, and enriching project. Souls are built and shaped to appreciate self-sacrifice and bearing our own crosses. Like grapes, we're nourished in the truth, so we flourish on God's vine. The love of the Holy Spirit fills the void in our lives and becomes ever more present within our hearts and minds as we learn and grow. But once one is a born-again Christian and his eyes are open to the truths of this world, the world becomes very different. We realize everything we do and everyone we encounter are part of God's plan for us and for the world. He calls on us to be all in, letting those fair weather fans or those who reject him go their own ways. Christianity is for those who have the courage to let God work through them to make the world a better place. As Jesus said, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Once we give ourselves to Christ, our anxieties seem to lessen. The day-to-day hassles of life seem to trivial to the big picture of our eternal well-being. Perhaps for these reasons, we witness Peter and Jesus' early disciples rejoicing after being beaten and singing in the prisons. They knew this life is but a speck of sand on the beach of heaven. And again, as Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Knowledge of Jesus Christ helps to quell those inner anxieties, fears, doubts, and worries that shape so many of our lives. Jesus' love helps to renew and revive our spirits, fill our God-given potential. So this is part, again, of a book I'm drafting called Power of One. So now I want to come back over here. I want to say hi to everybody in the chat. I'm going to actually, what do we have there? Am I good for G-Man? I'm not sure what little conversation is going on over here. Okay, so I can't see everything in the conversation for whatever reason. Okay, so let me just see. It says new comments, and I'm trying to click on it. So let me just see when I can see all these comments that are in here and why I'm not. Okay, now I'm able to see. So Germany's the epitome of hard work, well-organized socialist democracy. I got something interesting to tell you about Germany, SD. Now, I'm a German, okay? I'm of German descent. I've got German relatives who live in Kaiserslautern and Mannheim and Heidelberg and Berlin. My brother happens to live in Berlin right now. And my brother's little son, so my nephew lives in Berlin as well. My nephew was born in Berlin. And so what is Germany about? So I'm not only German, by the way, I'm a mutt. I have other things too. I've got English, Norwegian, and Irish, but German is part of my heritage. So the reason I can say this stuff is because I'm partly German. And I don't care if I offend them because I'm one of them. So here's the deal. The Globe study, which is of 62 societies across the world of thousands of people, collected data. And one of the dimensions they collected data on was the humane orientation. What is that? Well, that is this idea of being benevolent and being focused on other people outside of your in-group. So benevolence is focused on the in-group. It's also about being universalist, which is focusing on the out-group. And so one of the things that the Germans apparently have is the lowest levels of humane orientation across all countries that were surveyed by the Globe survey. So across 62 different major societies in the world, the lowest levels of humane orientation were found in socialist Germany. Now, what is that? Where does that come from? Well, let's think about this. Okay, think about this. When the government, when you're able to outsource care for the poor to the government, as they've done in Germany and in Sweden and in Norway and in France and in all of these other societies that have relatively low levels of humane orientation, you end up with relatively low levels of humane orientation because you're not seeing the poor. You're not going to the soup kitchens. The government's taking care of all of that for you. So you can see the sort of work that the people, the way they end up being, their traits. Now, interestingly, in that same survey, the highest levels of humane orientation tend to be in the poorest countries. So the African countries dominated. They had very high levels of humane orientation. And that speaks to the merits of non-socialist systems, fully socialist systems, because you're not outsourcing everything to the government. Okay, you're not avoiding the inevitable and seeing people and helping people in the greatest needs. One of the things about the United States is we're kind of in the middle. We outsource somewhat to the government, but we also have very large populations of people giving back. Some of the greatest charities going out in the world are coming from the United States. The United States is significantly contributing to storm victims and all sorts of other people around the world. And that speaks to the value of our Christian heritage. The United States is an outlier among developed countries as far as the level of people who still believe in Christianity. So we see higher levels of atheism now in these secular countries in Northern and Western Europe, relatively speaking, and relatively low levels of atheism. Again, I mentioned 3.1%. From the Pew poll here in the United States. So Christianity actually has really helped the United States in a number of different ways. We'll see if it continues. A lot of people are thinking these trends towards the left tend to be trends against Christianity. So we hope not. So let's see what Utopia Buster's saying. I'm gonna bring Utopia Buster stuff right over here. So let's see. Whoops. No, that's not what I want to do. Trying to see how I send this over. Show. There we go. So if the U.S. is so charitable, why so many poor in the U.S. itself? Okay, so why are so many people poor? Well, let's go back and talk about how many people are poor in the United States and how the numbers have played out. If you go back to about 1800, you're going to find that the vast majority of people in the world lived on the equivalent of $1 a day. They were very poor. You were either very poor or very rich, and very few people were very rich back then. There was not this burgeoning middle class. One of the great things about the United States is the burgeoning middle class, and that arose starting in the Industrial Revolution, and we've continued through the technology revolution. This middle class has gotten larger and larger. And so it's pretty amazing in the United States that we have this rags to riches sort of a story where you can work your way out of poverty. And that's open to everybody. Unlike a lot of other countries that have former caste systems. Now, India has a caste system. People know which caste they're in, even though they've abolished it. They still know which caste they're in. You have places like England where you definitely cannot go to the best colleges unless you're from the best families and have a history of being from the best family. So it's not just a rags to riches thing. It's a money thing in England. So if you're going to go to the best colleges, it's because you have the most money. In the United States, we see a lot of people from the inner cities populating Harvard, Stanford, and other Ivy League schools because our school system, our university system, is built to also bring in people of low socioeconomic means. And so we can see the rags to riches play out in the United States. The only reason why we have poverty in the United States, there are a bunch of reasons, but one of the reasons is because people are trapped in those inner cities and they have a hard time getting out. Some do get out and they end up at Harvard. And there's lots of stories like that that are all over the papers that people love to read. But there are also, unfortunately, the stories of people who've succumbed to the drug lords and to the wars in the streets and everything that we see today, like in Portland and Chicago and New York City and Kenosha most recently. And so that's sort of the challenge that we're seeing in the United States. So I can say that if you go to look at our history and you look at our middle class, you're going to find that we have a pretty strong economic system, although there is a big differentiation between the very wealthy and the very poor, and that's not a good thing. If you go back to the turn of the last century, 1900s, we saw a pretty big divergence between the rich and the poor. However, there was a good middle class. During the 1950s, when the union membership was at its highest peak, we saw the lowest levels of income inequality in the United States. And right now, we're kind of getting pretty high into the levels of inequality. So there is a bit of a problem. I'm not ever saying capitalism is perfect. However, I am saying that it's the best system we have in place right now that capitalizes on the natural motivations of people. Capitalism does that. It motivates you to innovate, to be entrepreneurial. You know that if you work hard and you want to buy a piece of property, you're going to be able to own that piece of property without fear that the government is going to seize your assets. Okay, that's the socialist sort of system you see in Venezuela and previously in a lot of other countries. So let's see what Utopia Buster has to say here. Where did that go? So US contributes 3 times more time and money to charities than the rest of the world combined. Now, Utopia Buster, is that also a function of our population? Like, is it divided by the population is my question for Utopia Buster. Why I'm asking that is because we have 330 million people. We're the 3rd largest country in the world, following China and India. They both have about 1.4 billion people. Interestingly, and this speaks to the value of capitalism and innovation in Silicon Valley, our gross domestic product, not per person, but overall, even though we have much fewer people than India and China, especially China, our gross domestic product, I'm mentioning especially China because their gross domestic product is right about the same level as ours. And ours, even though Europe is about 1.6 times bigger than us in population, the entire European Union, our gross domestic product is about the same as the entire European Union. That speaks to the value of innovation, entrepreneurship, and capitalism. And so that's the bottom line. Now let's see. Let me go back to Utopia. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and come out here and see if you guys want to talk about anything interesting. So let's put out some stuff. So actually, SD has a good question here. When will the U.S. pay back its international debt? Yes, about $22 trillion. That's pretty pathetic. Might be more. Last I checked, and of course, now that we have COVID, who knows what the numbers are now. I don't know. I don't know when we're going to pay that back. I certainly think it should be a priority. I think that different Democratic or Republican parties prioritize that in different ways. Right now, probably won't be the time we'll be paying back our debt since we've been incurring so much debt thanks to the pandemic and giving out our people a lot of money. And so we've been dealing with those challenges. So John Jotink, he's one of my old friends. In fact, if I remember you correctly, John, I think you were the one who met Aaron Ra in real life. You actually worked with him. You can let me know if I'm wrong with that. But he said, Jesus said to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and visit those in prison. Remember the orphan. That is what stirred early Christians to build hospitals, orphanages. He's so true. Look at the American Red Cross and its inspirations. Okay, that was early Christians. A lot of the hospitals, when they initially came up here in the United States, were named after Christian causes. They were, we have a lot of hospitals named after saints and those sorts of things. Some of that has changed lately, but a lot of them were named after pretty important Christians in the past. Christianity really changed the world. It changed people from considering more of a communist system where everything's done for the greatest good, despite anyone's individual contributions. As Marx said, the person who, it's according to your ability and you're given towards your needs. So in other words, if you have high or low abilities, it doesn't really matter. Everyone's going to contribute according to their ability, meaning if you have high abilities, high contributions to others according to their needs, meaning that regardless of what they contribute, everyone's going to get equal outcomes. So it's equality of outcome. It's a darn farce. Okay. It does not work. It's a horrible motivator. Okay. Equality of outcomes will never, ever work. Just to let you know that. And why is it? I teach motivation theory in my classes, in my leadership, and my other classes. It doesn't work. I'm taking this jacket off. It's actually cold in my house, but not that cold anymore. So one of the reasons why equality of outcomes doesn't work is because it's horrible. That's a terrible reason, I know. Equality of outcomes does not work, though, because it demotivates people. Put it this way. Say I'm in a family right now where I have one sister and 2 brothers. If my parents told me growing up that everyone's going to be working out in the yard and we're going to be picking up leaves and trimming bushes and doing all sorts of work like that, and everyone do their own work, okay? And say I'm a really good trimmer and I'm really good at picking up leaves and I bag like 15 bags of leaves, and my 2 brothers kind of lazy, maybe they decide, and I'm not saying they're lazy, but just say pretend this scenario. They decide they're only going to bag 1 bag of leaves, and my sister, she gets out there and she bags 30 bags of leaves. And my parents say, great job, everybody. Let's just give it back according to your ability. According to your need. All of you need $10. So we're just going to give each of you $10. And I'd say, wait a second. I should get not quite as much as my sister, but definitely I should get more than my brothers. Okay, you see how that works? There's something inside of you that says that's just wrong and you don't appreciate it. And so that's just something that's going on. Yes, a jacket on in Florida. Why is that? Let's just go back to this. I will tell you why. My husband likes it really cold in the house. We've had an air conditioning person out to take a look at our air conditioning over the weekend twice. And he's testing the AC, which now I think it works really well. It's been blowing like crazy in here and it feels really cold in my house. It feels like it's in the 60s. Although he claims it's only 71, which when we got married, I was used to 78. He got me down to about 75, 74, but now I think the house is at 71, and that's just a little bit, and there's an air conditioning vent right up over there, and so it's just blowing on me. It's like very cold. Slavery, yeah, let's talk about slavery, and Utopia Buster wants to mention that ancestors were slaves and Christians. There were Christians who unfortunately got involved in the slave trade. There were just most of the people in the United States in its early days were Christians, and unfortunately we saw some of the horrific stuff that came out of that. Thankfully, some of the people who stopped the slave trade were also Christians, and they were the ones who had a really true, fine understanding of the Bible, and they saw the verses from St. Paul, talked about everyone's equal, even if you're free or you're a slave, we're all under Jesus Christ. So Utopia Buster has a good point right here. Utopia Buster is just saying the last century is a stark testament to the inhumanity of atheist worldviews. Yeah, I know atheists do not like when we bring this up, but it's true. It's really true. Unfortunately, what happened in the last century, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is 120 million people perished. And it's this idea, again, of according to your ability, each contributes according to his ability, each receives according to his need. Okay, so that means that you're putting in a lot if you have a high ability, and you're not going to get anything more than anyone who puts in a little bit. And that's not really effective. Now, what happened in the last century, as you'll read in the Gulag Archipelago, is people on these farms in the USSR were told that they had to produce everything they had for the greater good in the cities. So the USSR people would take all of their produce and allow them to leave nothing behind. And a lot of people starved. They couldn't even retain a morsel for their family. And if they tried to, the USSR actually paid neighbors to snitch on each other. Okay, something pretty awful that happened back then. They would pay your neighbors to snitch on each other. And a lot of them did. And the Gulag Archipelago talked a lot about that. And if you did something they considered anti-communist, you were against the system, they would ship you off to Siberia, where you'd get off a train and you'd be put into the middle of the wilderness with really nothing. And so many people died in that way too. And so we've got some really awful stuff. So yeah, let's talk the increase of slavery. I'm not sure actually what led to slavery after the Enlightenment. That's a good question, Jesse. I'm not sure exactly how that came about, but we do know that Western Europe, we know that our country, the United States, Jesse, I think you're up in Canada. We also know that the islands, a lot of the islands ended up being populated by the slave trade. They were taking care of some banana plantations down in the islands, sugar plantations. Here in the United States, it was cotton. We had a lot of different places where the slaves were being used on the farms to produce, and they were sort of the economic backbone in a lot of these places. Unfortunately, they weren't treated the way that slaves were typically treated in the Bible. In the Bible, a slave was more of an indentured servant. A lot of times the relationship was rather contractual. It was temporary in many cases, unless the slave opted to remain in the relationship. If a slave escaped in the Bible, people who found that slave were told to bring the slave in and take care of him or her. That's not like the slave trade. If you escaped in the United States, you had a bounty on your head and you were captured and returned and most likely beaten and sometimes killed. So we had a pretty awful system back in the United States. It's really embarrassing, actually. So slavery was banned in the United States following the Civil War in 1863. So 1863 was when we saw the end of slavery. Unfortunately, were people still mistreated after that if you're Black? Well, yes, that's really sad. Up until 1963, when the civil rights movement really came about, thank you to Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, we finally got rights in the workplace for people who are Black to be able to have equal opportunities. So they were given the opportunity to get a managerial job or the opportunity to earn a better education, not sit at the back of the bus and be in segregated schools. So a lot of good opportunities came to people thank you to the civil rights movement. And so we saw that in the early 1960s. Now, do we still have problems today on racism? That's a big issue. Yes, we still do have problems today with racism, with racists. But is this systemic? Meaning, is it part of the system? I'd actually say no. I don't think it's part of the system, because I think our laws finally, after all of these years up until the 1960s, I think our laws right now are in place to correct systemic racism. But I do for sure see that we have some racists out there, and we see people making racist decisions in workplaces. We see it in schools. We might see it in the government. We might see it by judges. I mean, some judges, unfortunately, make some decisions where it sounds like, in some cases, that people who are Black are getting harsher prison sentences than people with equivalent charges who are white. And that is a problem. So we have to figure out ways to solve some of that sort of thing. And no, Charlie Reed, I'm not advocating slavery. Why would you say that stuff? You guys are crazy. This is like crazy stuff. Okay, BlasterMaster says, can you also talk about how you let G-Man whitewash the historicity of Holocaust while in a hangout with him and didn't correct him? Boy, I'm not sure about whitewashing the historicity of the Holocaust. But you bring up a subject that I think we should talk about. And since I know that this video is going to be demonetized, as all of my videos have been from YouTube. Thank you for me mentioning any sort of taboo topics, which include things like the Holocaust, or might as well just mention them all, because they're all demonetization buzzwords. But let's talk about, no, there's no whitewashing of the Holocaust. We know that about 6 million Jewish people perished in the Holocaust in very egregious ways in the concentration camps. We also know that people who had certain handicaps were also put in those concentration camps. Catholics, gypsies, a number of other people were also rounded up and thrown into the concentration camps. And so we do know that a lot of pretty horrific things, not all Catholics, it wasn't systemic with Catholics, but some were put in there. And what happened there was truly awful. I mean, it's the stuff that we see men, women, and children put in there, starved to death, told that they were going to get showers, shoved into these showers, supposedly. They're put in there in these little small rooms, squeezed in there like sardines, and then suddenly the fire comes on and they burn to death. And then their charred bodies were put into these mass graves. And so it's absolutely horrific what happened. We never want to repeat it. I've actually had somebody on my channel denying the Holocaust, and that's just completely egregious. You don't deny the Holocaust. We have plenty of evidence for that, including I have personal evidence. I've got my relatives over in Germany who told me a lot about this, and Germans are pretty embarrassed about having their relatives contribute to this horrific issue that happened in the 1940s. What did happen, though, as an outcome of that was in 1948, Israel, which had lost its nation status in the year 70, thanks to the Roman Empire conquering Israel, essentially knocking it down and destroying it and dispersing the Israelites all over the planet, what they call the diaspora, the scattering of people. Israel had no status as a country until 1948. What was in Israel was Palestine. Now, Palestine, the word itself apparently is a play on the word Philistines, because the Philistines were the arch enemy of the Israelites. So one of the reasons they called that area Palestine was to play on that. So SJ has nothing to do with what anyone says. Okay, yeah. So let's see. Jesse Camping if anyone wants to come in here, by the way, I could put a little link out there. Any of you guys interested in coming in here? So I could certainly put a link out. If anyone is, you guys just let me know if you want to come in here and join the conversation. So let's see, Jesse Camping, let's see, you're saying something here. European Quakers, a Christian movement, were the ones to start the abolishment of slavery in the 1700s. Actually, yeah, that's a good point. One of the things I want to bring up about that is some of the early abolitionists were very much discriminated against. They were hated by the slave owners, and they were mistreated in a lot of cases. So it took a very brave person to be an abolitionist. If you are coming from a different country and you're not familiar with some of our heroes of the 1800s and the 1700s, look into people like Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was a slave herself, and she was able to escape. And what she did, she spent her whole life returning through what they call the Underground Railroad, which was an underground tunnel system that went from the north, like in places like Pennsylvania, down to the south into places like South Carolina and Georgia, to rescue slaves and bring them back into freedom into the north. And so we've got some tremendous heroes in the United States by people like Harriet Tubman, who really made a huge difference. So thank you, Utopia Buster. It's been nice to see you. Let's see what else we have here. Galatians, I also want to say hi to you. Times change after Jesus Christ. Yes, Galatians is completely right. Times did change. And so we saw the value of the individual after Jesus and the value of women. Guys, take a look at this. Look at the world and look how the world was back in the BC era. So before Christ, how was the world? Well, women were considered second-class citizens. Their testimonies weren't considered valid. They were definitely not given a lot of rights. They couldn't work. They really didn't have the skills. They weren't given the skills. A lot of them weren't given schooling. Okay, they weren't provided the schooling that the men were provided. We even have that played out with people like Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, talking about the value of different humans and how some humans had more intrinsic value than others. And Jesus came about and said, sorry, folks, you're wrong. We're all equally valued. So let's see what we have right here. I'm not sure, BlasterMaster, I wish you could just sort of specify. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about with G-Man. I actually, to be honest, I don't recall the specific conversation about G-Man. Let him compare non-believers to Holocaust deniers. No, I don't think I would compare non-believers in God to Holocaust deniers. I'm not sure. I don't even recall, to be honest. I hate to say that, but I don't really recall exactly what G-Man said. Actually, I've had a lot of conversations about the Holocaust over the years, and I really don't recall specifics from that one. But as far as non-believers, I think that if you're a non-believer and you feel like, okay, I'm going to put a link in here. We can talk to BlasterMaster because it says he'll come in, or he or she. I don't know if Master Blaster's. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put a public link in here. I'm going to be a little bit daring. And there it is, copy. Okay. I'm going to give it to you guys, and whoever wants to come in is welcome. So here you go. We can discuss your atheism if you're an atheist. Okay, so you got the link. We'll see who knocks on the door here. So yeah, so Jesus is Lord. Thank you so much. You're saying, let's see what you got here. Women were mere chattel until Moses came and rescued them from the atheists of the day. So what? I don't know. You know what's interesting? They called the pagans atheists back in those days. So when they had we had one of the times when one of our saints, I'm forgetting which one, I want to say it was Polycarp, was being burned at the Roman Colosseum. People were yelling down with the atheists. And I think he was saying something like down with the atheists. The atheist was another way to say pagans. And so it wasn't that they were non-believers in God altogether. They were believers in gods. And that brings us to kind of an interesting conversation that I'm going to have in a few weeks with Dr. Michael Heiser on gods and some of the ideas coming out of Psalm 82. And if you haven't looked at that, take a look at what they called the sons of God. And take a look at Genesis 6 and how the sons of God went out into all nations and were given authority over all of them except for Israel. And then how Jesus reclaimed all of that during the Pentecost and sent out. He reclaimed all of that after his resurrection, but during the Pentecost, he sent his disciples out to go out and reclaim the lands. And they did. They reclaimed all 70 of the lands, had been occupied under the authority of these spiritual beings. They weren't gods. They were called sons of gods, which were considered spiritual beings, which had been given those powers. So if people give you a hard time and they say, well, how come people claim they're having these spiritual experiences in other parts of the world? Well, maybe they are. Maybe they are. We've never been told that we're occupied a world that has absolutely no spiritual beings or spiritual warfare going on. Of course, there's spiritual warfare going on. Seriously. Now I want to say hi to Gavin Hurlimann. I haven't seen him in a while. Actually, I did see him on, I think, Praise That I Am's channel. So hi, Gavin Hurlimann from New Zealand, and Galatians 3:26-29, and Jesus Lord. Airman's pretty useless. Wow. Hey, I'm going to have to put that one up there. This looks like a conversation to have. So why does SD for FR1, and why do you have such a hard name, SD? You got to change your name. I can't even tell what you're trying to say there. Yeah, so Bart Ehrman, maybe one of the reasons SD thinks this person's useless is because Bart actually is an agnostic. However, he is very forthcoming about the fact that Jesus walked the earth, and also about the fact that the core tenets of Christianity have not been changed. He's a textual critic who is studying under people like Bruce Metzger, who's a Christian. And Bart Ehrman admitted that despite the fact that he pretended there's a telephone game going on with the passing down of different scriptures from scribes to scribes over the centuries until we had a printing press, he admits that the core tenets of Christianity had not been changed. So I shared the link to come on in here if anyone's interested. Oh, I see Master Blaster down here. Let's add Master Blaster.
Hello.
Hello, Master Blaster. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. So you're BlasterMaster. What is that? What I should call you, like, or just BM?
Blaster, whatever.
Blaster. Okay, so
Or
Blaster.
Ryan. You can call me Ryan too. That's my first name.
Okay, that sounds good. So Ryan, what's your story? I know that you've been in my channel in the chat quite a bit over not just today but before. So
Years.
Tell us about yourself.
Since you probably went on the Atheist Experience the first time. I think I was probably one of your first subscribers.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm sure that was the yeah. Usually, I don't attract a positive following from that particular experience.
Well, I mean, I understand. Yes, that experience was probably unique for you.
Yeah.
It was a lesson, I guess.
Yes, it
I mean,
was.
you've said that many times. You're like, oh, I learned a lot from that. But
I did.
So yeah, I wanted to talk to you about some behavior. So like when you were on G-Man's show last week, I believe it was, when you were reviewing the what was it? It was the debate that it was the Matt Dillahunty debate, I believe, with G-Man.
Yeah.
You were reviewing that, right?
Yeah.
It was during that he was comparing the resurrection to that of Hitler existing.
Okay, so
and I think it went right over your head, like you missed it.
I think I must have, because I don't even remember
paying
it.
attention because he got you to agree to it.
Yeah, I definitely think I missed it because I don't recall it.
He does this to people. He uses people to validate his nonsense, and he'll say things in a way it'll get you to, if maybe you weren't paying attention enough or whatever, but he gets people to validate his nonsense. And, his bigoted ideas and beliefs. And I think he's using you as a way to prop that sort of his.
Yeah, I'll have to see. I consider G-Man a pretty good guy. I'm just noticing my earpiece. Hold on.
I don't think he is. I think he
broke.
Uses people. I mean, I've been watching him for 10 years now.
Oh, that's a lot better. Okay, I consider G-Man a pretty good guy, although I know that I've heard from people on Twitter and other places that sometimes he says stuff that I probably don't agree with.
Him.
No, I haven't really been following him except for
I've been following him for probably 10 years at least. I don't think he's wants to change at all. His behavior doesn't improve.
Actually, I don't know. Now he says, well, I don't know. We should probably not talk about him so much behind his back. But if he said, here's what I'll say. I'll just put my disagreement. So if he said that we can equate the Holocaust to non-believers, I will definitely disagree with that. I won't say that you can't equate Hitler with I mean, that's just a totally.
I mean, the problem is in the time that he was doing that, he worded it in a way that you didn't really catch it. And you agreed to it.
Yeah. Well, I'll follow. I'll watch that. So I'll make sure.
Yeah, go watch it.
Yeah. Well, let me get back also a comment here because we also have a Fifth Trumpet, and Gavin had added himself, but it looks like he dropped off. But Fifth Trumpet's also here, and I don't know Fifth Trumpet. So let's see if we can all have I want to have both you guys introduce yourselves so people know who you are, like what your background is. So but let me first say hi, Fifth Trumpet.
Hello, J. How are you? Thanks for bringing me in.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, as far as my background, I mean, I'm just a regular Bible study guy. Do you want me to make my comment now, or?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason I came in is because this whole idea of you are gods, you are all sons of God. I would disagree with that way of looking at it. But be that as it may, I also wanted to ask you, you said these sons of God were given authority over the nations, and you said Genesis 6. Is that where you're getting that?
I get that. Actually, part of it's Genesis 6. There's some in Numbers. There's some in some of the extra biblical information, like from First Enoch. And so I get a lot of it, not from myself, though. I have to give a lot of credit to Michael Heiser and his books, and I'm in the middle of one of them now that is called Reversing Herman.
All right. Well, that would be my comment. I absolutely I hear it all the time, and I've looked into it, and that's just not what people say it is, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree with you, Fifth Trumpet, and that's extremely controversial, and they're not teaching it in the churches, in a lot of churches. I know that's Michael Heiser's actually pointed that out. So I figure what I'm trying to do is do a Bible study, just read the Bible and see what the Bible says about it, and then just kind of go from there. So yeah. I tend to think that that's a pretty good approach.
Cool. Hey, I really do thank you for having me in. I mean, I know you don't normally have these live streams like open StreamYard. So it was nice talking to you. I do kind of have to go, but that would be my comment.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming in, Fifth Trumpet.
Yeah, thanks. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye. So it was nice seeing Fifth Trumpet. Okay, so we also had Gavin come in, and he got lost again. He's trying to stream in from New Zealand, and I know that from what I've heard from people, from people in the down under, they tend to have, I actually saw a debate where he was on it, and he was so funny because he was in a library, and he was walking out of the library, and I don't know if he knew his connection was still on.
That is one of the funniest Gavin moments ever.
Oh, it was great. It was great. I think Gavin would laugh with us on that. And so actually, I want to say before we start, SD actually had a good point. He says this. I want to point this out. He's right about this. He says, you don't want to talk behind G-Man's back, but you do so for all the people whose videos you critique. He's absolutely right. He's totally right. So I'm going to say something right now. Anyone whose video I critique is welcome to come in and talk to me about the video I critique. I do know that a lot of people have critiqued my videos in the past and my debates. So I think it's sort of fair game. If you get in a debate, that you could expect people are going to critique your debates. Does that seem kind of fair?
Yeah.
I mean, I expect
you should do it. You should do what Pine Creek does, and just be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Matt Dillahunty was invited, but we ran out of time."
Does Pine Creek actually say something negative about Matt Dillahunty?
No. He'll say whoever he's critiquing, he'll at the end of the show, he'll be like, "Thanks for watching." He's like, whoever he's critiquing, he'll be like, Randall Rouser was invited to come on, but sorry, we ran out of time. Maybe next time. Yeah. You know
what I think I'm going to do from now on? I think you just gave me a great idea, and so did SD. I'm going to invite whoever it is that I'm when I do critique a video. From now on, I'm going to stick out the invite there, and just so I can actually say I got rejected.
Idea.
Was that?
Well, I think that's a great idea. I bet you'll get taken up at some point on that.
I'm going to do it because I have to admit, I've critiqued Matt Dillahunty's video a little much.
I don't know if he'll come on, but
at least I'll be able to say I invited him. I don't even know how I could reach him because he has me blocked on Twitter. And
you can go to his Twitch.
His Twitch? I don't even have a Twitch.
His Twitch stream.
So I know what I'm.
Twitch TV is where like gamers stream their gaming channels and stuff.
Oh, okay. My kids are probably on there.
Yeah, Matt Dillahunty has a gaming channel.
Okay. So I'll have to check that out. So I know I do. It's because he keeps getting in a lot of debates, and his stuff is kind of needs to be critiqued. And so I feel like someone has to critique him, and I feel like I'm up for the job.
I don't know. I don't know. I'll be honest, SJ. I don't think your critiques of Matt Dillahunty are that great.
You think his idea of, well, actually, we're talking about him behind his back. So maybe we shouldn't.
Care.
So it says Matt Dillahunty got BT FOD by Jay Dyer. Are you familiar with Jay Dyer?
Oh, the Jay Dyer debate. Which one was that?
I never saw that one, actually. I know Jay Dyer. I think he's a young Earth creationist
out there. I mean, I've probably seen most of his debates.
Yeah. So let's see.
He's got a silver tongue.
Matt Dillahunty has a silver tongue?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He has a way with words. You got to admit.
I see his big thing is he's very careful with his words. I will give that to him. He knows not to say certain things that you could call him on. I'll say he's articulate. Sure. Yeah. I could say he's articulate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's fair. So, did anyone see Dr. McClatchy's crucifixion? Yeah. Dr. McClatchy's crucifixion. I saw, now one of the debates I did critique was the Jonathan McClatchy Dillahunty one. I don't remember if that was with G-Man or if I did that on my own, but that's one of the ones that we looked at.
I think you started it on your own, and then you finished the other. You went onto his channel to do a little bit about it.
Oh, that's right. That was that one. Okay. Yeah. I get mixed up because I have this list here of all of these debates that I just keep them all where I want to jump in onto the debate and where I'm going to make comments. I had some. Hey, do you use StreamYards much yourself?
This is the first time I've used it.
Okay, because I'm trying to figure out. I'll have to figure out how to be able to play the sound here when I try to share videos, and I don't know if it's because I have the freebie StreamYard that I'm not able to do that. But
right.
But I don't even see the option on here, and so next time
I see a share screen option, but.
So you share. I know there is share screen, but there isn't like you know how it works in Zoom where you share the screen and then they have a video. You can adjust the volume.
Right.
So BlasterMaster. So where are you from? Are you from the United States?
I am. I'm originally from Montana and North Idaho.
Oh, wow. Okay. So where are you now? You say originally, are you in the?
I'm in Arizona now.
Okay. So you stayed out west.
Yeah, my wife's going to school here. She's in a PhD program here.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. So is it Arizona State?
NAU.
Okay. And NAU? Northern Arizona? Mm-hmm. That's funny. I had a friend who interviewed for the dean's job there at the College of Business about almost 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So he's now at the Citadel.
It's really nice here. I mean,
I saw the pictures.
Arizona, but
it's northern Arizona, so there's lots of mountains and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, we're at 7,000 feet. Rarely gets above 85.
Yeah, I would definitely live there.
It's
I would
sunny
definitely live there.
90% of the time. Oh, well, coming from like North Idaho where I lived, it was, very Seattle-like weather, Mm-hmm. So when I moved here, I was like, oh, my winter depression is gone. I can go outside in December and it's 60 degrees and sunny. And then it'll be snowing.
Yeah, that's the thing, the seasonal affective disorder, they call it. And I grew up in Chicago, outside Chicago. I refuse to go back to that. I'll never live in that.
You know how it is.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, I mean, just if you guys don't live there yet, don't go up there because it's overcast 90% of the time in the winter. And it's like slushy and gross in the spring. Ugh, it's cold. The only nice times are in the summer. And the fall's kind of nice at the beginning when the leaves are falling. And the first snow is nice. But after that, it's all downhill. Although I have to say, I like it out. I love Wyoming. I was just in Wyoming for the first time, and I love that.
Yeah, Wyoming's nice. I lived in Yellowstone for a little while. I worked in Yellowstone when I was younger, about maybe 20 years ago or so.
Yeah.
It was really nice. I enjoyed it a lot. It's, I have family in Wyoming and stuff around there.
Yeah, no, it's very nice out there. I would live out there for sure. In fact, I'd live in the area we went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Yep.
And it was beautiful, but then it was funny because my sister told me, she said it's the most expensive area in the whole United States, which I didn't know.
Yes, it's a tourist trap like no other.
Yeah, we got a good deal. I hate to say this, but we got a good deal because of COVID, which is horrible. We totally renegotiated our hotel place when we got there because it was March. We got there the week that it all hit. And we get there and we get to the place and we're like, well, we had a bedroom with, the couple of beds. I have 2 kids and a husband. So we get there and there's just a plain bedroom with a kind of an efficiency sort of thing. And we negotiated to get into this awesome, awesome condo that had this amazing 2 balconies and this view of the mountains and all this stuff. And it was barely any more money. It was way more online than it would have been. So, Oops, Gavin's back here. Let's see. Yeah, it was really nice, but I'll never get that deal again. I told my sister, I said, that's just once in a lifetime. Gavin, it looks like you have to connect your mic to get in here. It says device not connected, and I'm getting a warning sign. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yeah, it was so nice. So do you ski?
I do, and snowboard, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, my kids snowboard and I ski. I love it. So hi, Gavin. I don't know if Gavin can, sound's going to come back. Yeah, McClatchy, I see that in the chat. There's a little bit of chatter going on about McClatchy. He left the debate with Matt Dillahunty, and then he came back. And so I guess he wasn't able to get his points out or something like that. And it's unfortunate because then people thought it was a rage quit.
It was.
So, yeah, I guess
I mean, if I'm playing a game with someone and I'm defeating them in the video game and they rage and they quit, that's a rage quit.
Yeah, I don't play video games, so I don't even know what I
mean, that's where that term came from, right?
That's where it came from. Okay, I didn't know that. My kids sometimes they'll start yelling at their people they're playing with on the video games. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why are you so? That just got killed. I just got killed.
It's very serious matters, SJ.
Oh my gosh, you wouldn't even believe it. Right now, my kids are so calm though because they're doing online school downstairs. So every time I peek in their room, they're sitting in their rooms and there's a Zoom video with all these kids in there and the teacher's talking to them. And I'm like, yes, this is great.
You're like, finally some peace and quiet around here.
It's so quiet in my house right now. It's unbelievable.
Can I ask how old are your kids?
Yeah, 14 and 15.
Okay. That's teenagers.
Yeah. They're teenagers, but they're experiencing this. I want them to go back to school, to be honest. And some lunatics from our school district decided that they're going to sue the school district for forcing the kids to wear masks. And so now they're delaying the kids going back, which is making me sick. I'm just let the kids go back and be social. They can wear the masks and they'll be fine.
I know. It's like people are like, this is fascism. You're making me wear a mask. That's like Nazi tactics. It's like, what?
Yeah, what? Like, where's this coming from?
What planet?
Well, then I got on Twitter and I was like, listen, this is not the mark of the beast. I mean, I seem to think that's what people think. They think it's this is not the mark of the beast. This is just you helping out little old ladies and other people who are at risk for getting sick by wearing your mask.
SJ, I was watching Calvinist the other day, and he was talking about how he says because the mask is a mandate and it's not a law, if you wear a mask, you're giving in to the devil.
Yeah, that's exactly what somebody told me. And I like the one person who said that to me. I don't think she's a Calvinist, but I don't know what she is. But she said something like, you're giving in to the devil. Don't let your kids wear the masks. I'm like, seriously? I mean, I just taught a class from 9 to 5 Saturday and Sunday to EMBA students. I wore a mask the whole time, and so did they. And we all social distanced and were like CDC guideline compliant. It's good to go. It worked out fine.
Yeah, my wife's a teacher as well. She's a full-time teacher and student.
Yeah,
and so she's GED classes at the community college here.
So and you said she's in a PhD program too, right?
Yeah.
That's great. So, how far is she along? Out of curiosity.
Awesome. She's on her. Well, okay. She has 2 MAs already and 2 BAs. She has 2 masters in ESL, and then she's going back to get her school in like curriculum development and education. So she's
very good.
Teachers.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, my grandfather was a he came from the College of Education. He had his PhD at Northwestern, and then he was teaching over at Northern University.
Okay, so I think she's got about maybe two years left, maybe. Hopefully.
Good. Wait, did she pass her comprehensive exams yet?
I don't know if she has taken those yet.
If you don't know, she probably hasn't yet.
Yeah.
So that's the clincher. Once you get past that, everything's gravy.
Right. Yeah.
You just got to get past that. That's the hard part because you have to memorize every single. If anyone's wondering about if a PhD program is easy, it's not. It's not at all like a master's program.
She was in a PhD program for ESL, and she struggled with the exams.
Oh, it's hard. And
so they just gave her another master's degree, and now she's back in school on a different PhD program. So,
yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. I'll tell you that we had to, just to give people an idea. I thought I had an MBA, and I thought to earn a PhD would be an extension of the MBA. It's not even close. It's totally not close. The MBA is an extension of an undergrad, right? But a PhD. The first day for example, I had to take 6 statistics classes, 6 different ones. This was business. And I had to, the very first day, I remember the first statistics class I took, they had a textbook, and the guy gets it out and he says, well, let's just start with chapter, it was either 5 or 10. It was something way far into the book. And I thought, holy cow, wait a second, we're skipping all this other stuff. I had to play catch up for the next 2 weeks trying to catch up and make sure.
You should know this.
Yeah, that's what he assumed, but I hadn't seen this stuff in 10 years. Right. So it all worked out fine. I'm actually really glad that I learned all the statistics because I came to appreciate it much more than I had in the lower level classes. So
they had my wife doing statistics and like even programming. She had a programming class.
Yeah, it's very useful once you see a use for it. It actually becomes kind of fun
the statistical analysis class that she was taking. She had quite a bit of fun doing that.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
She was doing a paper on street epistemology, actually.
Oh, really?
She was working with Anthony Magdabosco.
Really? So is she on your same? Is she an atheist like you?
She is. We were both Christians when we first started dating.
Now, Gavin, I think I had the link here. I'll try it again. Unfortunately, I think maybe your New Zealand connection is cutting out here. So let me try it again. Hit enter. So hold on. Enter, did that come in? Yeah. So we'll see if that works again. So you were a Christian when you started out, and then you guys decided to gravitate towards atheism?
We both kind of left the faith. I left first, and then maybe a year later, she kind of, or a year or two, I guess, later, but she slowly left too.
So Gavin, now can we hear you?
Shalom.
Hi.
It does work now.
Hi, Gavin.
Hi.
Hi, Gavin.
Hi, Dr. SJ. Happy Wednesday morning from New Zealand.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, happy Tuesday afternoon from Florida.
It's Tuesday morning here, so.
So Tuesday morning where you are too. Yeah, you're out in Arizona. You're 2 hours behind, right?
Yeah, it's 10:30.
Okay. Oh, it's 10:30. Okay, so you're 3 hours difference than I am.
Yeah,
okay.
It's because there's no daylight savings here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't really like daylight savings. I have to admit, it'd be fun if they got rid of it.
I'm glad that I don't have it.
Yeah, so we're 2 hours difference in you in the summer and 3 hours in the winter then, I guess, huh?
Yep.
Well, that's why I was thinking you were 2 hours behind.
I have like this atomic clock, like a radio, that picks up AM radio signals to set itself.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever the clocks change, I still have to set it to Mountain Time or Pacific anyway, even though I'm not in a different time zone.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think it's just because of where I'm located.
That's good. So let me ask Gavin this. Gavin, I've seen you lately on channels like Praise I Am and some other places. So what have you been up to?
Been debating a bit, believe it or not, because it's really hard to find atheists to debate. But doing a lot of moderating, just the usual. I'm just wondering, did you want a really controversial subject to talk about?
Did I want a controversy? Sure, yeah, why not?
Oh, I've got a debate coming up in a week. Why Christianity is superior to atheism?
Who's that? Who are you going to debate?
It's actually a no name, but I did debate Nathan Orman on this last Friday.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I know Nathan.
Yeah. So if you wanted to check that out, that's up. But
How did I miss that? Was that on his channel or where was that?
Yeah. It was on his channel.
Okay.
It's very hard. I'm finding it really hard to find atheists to debate. So I actually had to end up going on Nathan's channel, or getting in touch with Nathan, and giving away a lot of things. Like, it was his channel. There was no moderator. He basically chose the topic of debate. But here's the interesting thing: doing all the research and getting the bits and bobs together, as you do, it turns out that Christianity's always held the intellectual high ground when compared to atheism, since probably end of the 1st century, early 2nd century, when the data was being kept, when the data was being recorded.
Yeah. So that's the we have. I mean, one of the things about Christianity that I really like is I feel like it answers life's biggest questions. And I think that's what you're getting at. It answers, why are we here? How did we get here? And where are we going? And why do we have this objective moral sense to do what's right? And so a lot of the big questions Christianity can answer and science can't.
That's right. And as a bit of buttressing evidence, I just used statistics from the 20th century. Since 1901 till now, 78.3% of Nobel Peace Prizes have all been awarded to Christians. That's a lot.
Well, there's also a lot of Christians were the initiators in a lot of the scientific movements, were the initiators of hospitals, universities, freedoms for women, fair treatment of children, infants, and people were given equal rights, and of course the abolition of slavery. So Christianity's brought a lot to society. And so one of the things that really upsets me is when I look at countries, especially in the Northern and Western Europe, where it seems like people aren't appreciating their roots and what Christianity's brought to the table, and they're moving past that, thinking that they're beyond that. And I think they're not giving fair credit to where credit's due. No,
you're right. And also the data. Now, this is secular data. This is not Christian data. The data from the study shows, all things being equal, everything being equal, Christians live longer than atheists. Christian marriages fail at a rate of 33% compared to secular marriages that fail at a rate of 50%. More atheists.
Where are you getting that statistic from?
From meta-analytic studies.
I'm wondering on that one, Gavin, what I'm wondering about that is because I've been trying to find those kind of studies too. And one study came out and they said that there's more Christian divorces than atheists, but they didn't do it as a function of the total population. And so, of course, there's more Christians than atheists, so they're having more Christian divorces than atheists, which was an idiotic study because they didn't include it as a function of the population.
Lower for atheists, I think.
That's what you would think from that study, except for once you look at it as a function of the population, the numbers were both about 50%.
Yeah, Dr. SJ, I can send you the data. I'll email it to you.
So, I'd like to see that because the other thing is they distinguish, let me just say this really quickly. They do distinguish which Christian sect you're in, because I feel like from what I saw from the studies I have found is evangelical Christians who are born again have lower rates than maybe their Catholic counterparts. And so there are some sect differences.
In 6 months or so, we'll have some probably better statistics on this sort of thing right now from the census. That's
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
So the other
let's wait till then, and then we'll because I mean, I can when I Google that sort of thing, I'm not seeing that it's equal. I don't know where you guys are finding that data, but that's fine. I'd be interested. I'm curious though what the new census is going to show.
Well, the divorce rates between secular and Christian marriages are no way equal.
I've been with my
all.
wife for 20 years now, so.
Well, that's you.
You know what? I can say that I know Christians who've been divorced. I know atheists have been divorced. I mean, if you had to go anecdotally, it's, you know, I have to say
it's
that
probably going to be about equal.
I just caught a Gmail from someone who's sometimes watched my channel. I'm not going to name this person, but he's rebuking me and telling me, here's a quote. I won't say who this is who's telling me this. I'm not impressed with your behavior at all. It's time that women like you shut up and learn in silence instead of attack real preachers and side with the world.
Ooh.
Dang, someone's really rebuking me. It's even the headline on it's called Rebuke. I'm going to invite this person on my channel.
You should.
I'm going to invite him. And he's already made a famous name for himself. Richard Dawkins actually knows who he is.
Oh.
So
we can probably figure out who that is then.
You might be able to. He doesn't like a video I made a long time ago. I think I made this video a year ago. He doesn't like it.
Wow.
So he's catching up with me now. Oh, and I'm a fake and a fraud. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Here's some more data that's that confirms Christianity is superior to atheism. Far more atheists suffer from depression than Christians. Atheists are far more successful in their suicide attempts. Did I say Christians live longer than atheists, all things being equal?
I wonder if these things were like reversed. Would that validate atheism?
No, we're not talking.
Would it make
we're not
it
talking
superior?
about that. No. We're not doing thought experiments. We're just talking about hard data and the reality.
You can't do hypothetical too much for you?
No, not too much for me.
No, I have to say, I know where Gavin's coming from with some of those studies. There are a lot of studies out there, and they are meta-analytic studies. They have shown higher levels of depression and suicide and those sorts of things, alcohol abuse, drug abuse. A lot of it is a function of which country you're in and how they treat atheism as a whole.
That's right. That's right.
If you're in the United States, where people tend to be anti-atheist in general, because you have vast majority of the population is Christian or at least believers, atheists feel as if they don't fit in, and so they tend to get more depressed. Whereas if you're over in Europe, where in some parts of Europe where they endorse atheism at higher level, like places like the Netherlands or Sweden, you're going to see that atheists feel like they fit in more over there, so they tend to be happier.
Yep.
Here's a meta-analytic study that I found really amusing. Actually,
SJ, I can speak from experience on that one. I lived in a country that was more secular, and I felt a lot happier because I wasn't being bombarded by religious and propaganda and stuff all the time, and I wasn't being told that I can't have morals or that I should be depressed more.
Funny that because I live in a Christian-esque country, and I've never seen Christian propaganda.
Have you lived in a country? Have you lived in a different country though?
Here's quite a funny story.
Gavin, have you ever lived in another country other than the one you live in?
Yeah, I live in a country. Can you let me finish?
Have you ever left?
Talking me? Here's a meta-analytic study that I found quite amusing, actually. Now, it was done across 13 countries, and it took a fair bit of time to do. But the question was, out of all the religious groups, which religious group do you personally find the most distrustful? And after a fair while, because it takes a fair while to do these studies, it came back that Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, Hare Krishnas. What else have I left out? Anything else? Oh, and did I say Hindus?
Yes.
Krishnas, Buddhists, Hare Krishnas. Okay. Oh, and Muslims. they were deemed to be more respected and trustworthy than atheists. And even atheists that were polled in these countries, across these certain countries, even atheists distrusted other atheists more than they distrusted Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Hare Krishnas, that kind of thing. So even these countries, excuse me, I haven't finished. And these countries range from really secular countries to really, really religious countries, like, you know, the Netherlands, for example, is very secular. But there was also this data that was collected through a lot of African countries. So I thought it was quite amusing that, all things being equal, atheists don't even trust other atheists.
That actually, I know who the author of that study. I've seen that study. It's by Gervais, Gervais. I actually kind of referenced that in the beginning of this video. But there, yeah, I have seen that study, and I think that atheists probably wouldn't be very happy about those results, given that other atheists said that. And that's actually there's a few studies that have found that same thing.
Yeah.
But listen, hey guys, I have another conversation that's going to happen in an hour and 15 minutes. Which is with Ruby Spacek, who she's the person I got on the Modern Day Debate with and debated the merits of online sex work.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And I said, no, that's not a good idea. And she said, yes, it is a good idea. And so she's going to come on my channel at 3:00 today, and we're going to talk about some other stuff, because somebody was we're going to talk about different ways to cope in this COVID environment. And she's going to mention probably things like some certain kinds of drugs and that sort of thing. And we're going to talk about some kind of tough topics. And so we're going to do that in just an hour and 15 minutes. So, so I'm bringing that up. I don't have, maybe have 5 more minutes when we can be on here. And I got to take a break.
Is it live, Dr. SJ?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'll tune in for that.
Yeah, do tune in. So Ruby, she's really nice. Actually, I think she's in her 20s, and she and I have different opinions on just about everything. I looked at her Twitter thing. When I first was asked to debate her, I looked at her Twitter thing and I thought, oh my gosh, I couldn't find somebody more opposite of me. But when I talked to her, she's a really nice person. I think we just coming from different aspects of life in different years right now. And so it'll be interesting to see what else she has to say.
But that's good to get together and then just have public discourse, even though you do agree, because you can agree to disagree and not be disagreeable about it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. As long as you keep on trying to be friendly and nice and that sort of thing. And just like I just sent that person who sent me that email that I just mentioned to you guys an invite to come on my channel. So we'll see if he accepts it.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be fantastic.
So we shall see. So listen, you guys, why don't you share with people how they can get a hold of you, or either or what you're working on now, if you're working on any projects, if you'd like to share that.
I don't even have a channel, Dr. SJ.
Oh, that's right. So people find you usually on other people's channels in the chats, right?
Yeah, that's where they'll find me.
Any upcoming debates? You said there's one, right?
Yeah, I've got one in exactly one week's time. And that is why Christianity is superior to atheism.
That's right. So we got a debate coming up. And then what about you, Blaster?
Oh, well, you can find my YouTube channel, whatever. It's BlasterMaster 80.
Okay.
I have some old content on there. I am actually planning on making some newer content. I'm actually a cook, so I was going to plan on making some cooking videos, actually. And then also I'm going to be gaming with a friend of mine. And hopefully I can put some of that content up there as well. Cool.
Very nice. Well, listen, everybody, I'm going to have to go because I'm going to be back on here in an hour and 15 minutes, and I want to quick get a bite to eat. Speaking of cooking, I made some meatballs last night, and I'm going to go eat them.
Sounds good. It was nice talking to you,
Thank you guys for coming on here, okay?
God bless you.
Let's do this again.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. God bless everybody.
Right. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.